Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Mumbai Angels Network Reboot, Navigating the New Normal. We at the MA Network have been working towards empowering our community with our knowledge sharing sessions in this new normal. We have been flooded with questions about the organization, startup investments, and how it all works. To address these, we have our co promoter and CEO, Nandini Mansinghka, here in person to answer them on a real time basis for our audience. Nandini has over 20 years of experience across investment banking, media, and education sectors. She has also founded DigiBooster, India's first data driven influencer marketing platform. Nandini has held leadership positions in the investment banking research group at JP Morgan in India. And prior to JP Morgan, she was part of the corporate strategy and finance group at the Times of India group. We have crowdsourced these questions, and Nandini will be answering them during the first 40 minutes. In the meanwhile, you can ask your questions by either raising your hand or by sending it to us via chat, and we'll take a shot at getting them answered by Nandini. So, without taking much time, let's begin. Over to you, Nandini.
Thank you, Shivangi. It's always just great to be here and, try and answer questions about not just Mumbai Angels in general, but the entire ecosystem. Because as we move through COVID times, and, I now like to say that maybe it's no longer that uncertain as before. Now we've waded through the first couple of months where all of us were actually in a state of shock. What I'm happy to report is that we as Mumbai Angels actually didn't see any slack or any slowdown in investing. We actually saw that a lot of our investors were more keen to invest in startups. And it could be a function of A, investors taking a long-term view and not just saying that, look, this is going to be just a 2-month, 3-month thing. And also seeing that the founders, the startup founders have started becoming more amenable to the questions that the investors ask. And, more importantly, the kind of valuations that, the discussions that you have across the table on valuations, those have changed because there is A, the valuation component, and B, there is this component on saying, how are you going to manage uncertainty? So the key question that we have seen in this whole thing coming out is not just COVID. It's about saying, is your business resilience proof? Are you geared to handle such events that today, in our view, it could become more frequent? These are, so maybe this is the first time that we are seeing something like this in our lifetime. But what if more such events come? And more importantly, how will COVID unfold from here onwards? So, like the MA Reboot as a format and the AMA that we are doing is precisely here to answer these questions. And what I'm going to do, Shivangi, after this thing is that I think there have been some questions that have come in before we went live, right? I'm going to pick up some of those questions and let me just start answering those. And then we can start taking more questions as people come in and they ask, right? So one of the first questions that I've got, and this is from the investor perspective, is saying, what is the process of becoming an investor? And a related one to say, when do I know that I'm ready for investing? Now the second one is actually you will know once you've already gone into the process. So that's easily answered first. Yeah. Now, the first one, what is the process of being an investor? The first thing that we need to understand when we're looking at angel investing is that it is not the same as investing in any other asset classes. Okay? I'm using the word asset class, so bear with me when I move through this. When, a lot of times when we get first-time investors into the process and we use the word asset class, they start getting a little worried because they say, no, we are into this for our passion. We are here because we really love working with startups. We love working with founders. We see, our younger selves in them. What we say, and this is something that as a network we continuously keep talking, is that you cannot fall in love with your investments. that basic tenet remains the same irrespective of what you are investing in. So if you don't fall in love with your stocks in the equity stock market, you can't fall in love with the startups that you invest in. What you have to do, so the whole setup of how you do this, say within Mumbai Angels, is you first become a member with us. So that there is that process on, you will approach us and say, listen, I want to become a member. There will be a certain process that you will go through and you will become a member. What is the promise that a network like ours or any network that you join is giving you when you're becoming a member with them? One is the promise of excellent deal flow. What I mean by deal flow is, just to give you a sense of numbers, we as a network, we see about 8 to 10,000 startups a year. Half of them apply to us, the other half we go out there and search for them. So here are some 8 to 10,000 startups that come to us. With that, our team, so we have a very strong investment team within the network. The team will then start using the filters that we have as a network, and that has evolved over our collective knowledge and wisdom over the last 12 to 14 years that we've been in business. And you're going to then look at those and say, okay, here are some shortlists. So from that 8 to 10,000, the internal team themselves are going to shortlist it down to, I think, about say 500. So that is done just internally, right? And you're going to do that saying, based on our parameters, these startups look viable for investing. Okay. Then we take that shortlist to our member base, which is like what you call a first look, new deals on the block. So they go to our member base of about 450 plus members. And members then again will start doing, and this we do through our app and through our online portal, which is done through a partnership with Gust. And there you're going to start saying, I like it first. So it's again a filtration process where you say, I like it. Can I get more information? Can I understand what's going on? So that's the second level that happens. Once that happens is when we will again shortlist it down to about 100 startups. So we are now saying that of the 8,000 startups that have been coming through our funnel, about 100 to 120 startups are the ones that we will showcase to all our members. Now, this showcase, of course, pre-COVID used to be a lot more physical. So we have 9 chapters across the country, and we would actually get people to go and visit these chapters. That is going to come back once COVID eases. But what we have figured during that process is that as the lockdown happened, we quickly shifted to a virtual mode. And now we have these virtual showcases for all the chapters online where all our members and guests can join. So you present these startups then present to our member base of 500 people. And you get present, so as a startup, the startup will get to present, say, a couple of times, because they will present in different virtual showcases. Say you'll do like a Mumbai or a Delhi and a Kolkata, and you've done those. Post that, each investor will take their individual call on whether they want to invest or not. What we as a platform do is that we will keep giving you as much information that you need to be able to make up your mind. And that is going to be a function of a lot of research that we will do. We send out reports from our side, a researched summary of what we think is happening with the company. If you are looking for a conversation with the founder, those conversations are arranged. If there are questions that you have as an investor, you will send it back. We will find those answers either ourselves or through the founder and send them back to you. So that is when this has happened, each investor will do what is called a penciled amount, saying, listen, I'm interested. And our minimum threshold for each investor is about 5 lakhs. So anywhere between 5 lakhs to people. So there are investments where you invest from 5 lakhs to 1 crore. And you're going to send that out, and we will then start building the book. Once we build the book is when you start doing what is called the due diligence. So we need to understand that, yes, there is enough interest in the company for us to go out there and do the due diligence, the detailed due diligence. Remember, the first level has already happened once you've got it down from 8,000 to 100 to 120. This is the final due diligence where you will look at several parameters on saying, is this finally investable or not? Only once that is done is then the investors are asked to wire the money. So this is how the investment process happens. Each investor is becoming a part investor in the total round. So what that means is that our investments happen anywhere between 50 lakhs to one of our recent ones that we've done. We've closed $1 million investment in one of our companies. So each investor will then become a part owner of that investment based on how much they have put in. So that is the process of becoming an investor. When do I know I'm ready for investing? Like I said, it has to be something that you start out. You cannot just keep waiting at the corner. You have to jump in. You have to start taking the calls. And after the first few calls, you will start understanding what is your investment methodology. What is it that you are looking for? What are you comfortable with? Let me just move on. So I think a lot of these questions I'm answering, but we'll take them also. On what basis is a startup to be evaluated? Now, this one is it's an art and a science. And if we actually wanted to put an algorithm together to say, okay, what makes our any company that we put out to our member base saying, look, we think this is investable. I think we're talking of easily about 50 to 75, if not more, parameters. Yeah. However, if we wanted to actually just say, okay, what are the first few that that we look at and we feel that these are some of the parameters that's the first level filter. First, of course, and I think anybody who's been either associated with the ecosystem, either as a founder or as an investor, has heard most of it. But I'm just going to reiterate some of them. The first one, of course, is the team. That is absolutely critical. And when we say it's team, it's not just saying, oh, do we like these guys or not? You are asking something very specific, saying, does this founder understand the business? Is the founding team between them have the requisite skill set to be able to take the company from where it's to the next level? Are the founders full-time? One of the questions we do ask is on saying, how much money have the founders put in the company themselves? Because that shows some, financial commitment also apart from the time that. Then, of course, you're saying, what is the business plan? What is the market that the team is running after? So these two things are absolutely critical. Sometimes you'll see fabulous teams chasing a very small idea, or you'll see an average team chasing a very large and a very good idea. For us, the market and the size of the market, both of them are as important as the team that you are investing in. Yeah, so those are the things. Then there are, of course, things that you will look at saying, what are the government regulations that could come back and hit this company? If it is a retail company, if it's a consumer-facing company, has it started showing some basic traction? So we need some proof of concept in terms of revenue. And that depends on whether you're a B2C company or a B2B company. For both B2C and B2B, we'll require some traction. We will not go and invest in something that has just started out. Right? If, however, you are a product company, so for example, if you are in a space tech, or if you're in med tech, or you are trying to build a product that health tech. So we've done a lot of these health tech companies where you're just looking at preclinical trials. You've just started going and researching whether this works. So if it is a product, then we are saying we are going to invest into it at the pre-revenue stage. However, anything that actually requires the sales force to be out there and selling, whether it's a B2C or a B2B, we will require some traction. So here are some of the things that we will look at. Then, of course, there are other things on what is the gross margin that is there? What is the fund requirement? Are we the first investors that are coming in? If not, who are the earlier investors? Are they putting money in this round or not? Who are the co-investors with us? So a lot of times we also do co-investing. So if a part of the funding has already been done, who are the co-investors? has this team actually done similar work before? So do they come from that line, or are they from, on, has anybody of the founding team actually done a startup before? So do they understand the startup culture? Is there somebody in the current team that understands sales? I can't, focus enough on saying sales is the critical component. It doesn't matter how good your idea is. If you do not have a sales plan in place, chances are that you're going to not be able to reach your goal as fast as you have been wanting to. So here are some of the things, and we can take, if there are some questions that you have specifically on this, we can.
Nandini, you've spoken about which startups get funded. I think the counter question would be, what are the kinds who actually don't make the mark when it comes to coming on to the MA platform?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's a excellent question, Shivangi. So, like I mentioned, about 99% of companies that come to us don't get funded. Yeah, so that's a huge number. Some of the things that I see are common on this thing is that I think a lot of companies are actually not investment ready. They don't understand the investment process. They have walked into this without having done any research on how the investor works. So, for example, do you have your business plan ready? Do you have your business deck ready? Do you know the basic process? So you can't lose patience with the investment process and say, oh, it's taking time, because it will take anywhere between 90 to 100 days from the time you will come to any network or any investor and say that, look, I need heights. So a lot of times, if the founders don't understand the investment process, that falls through. If you're too early, that of course is not a question on whether you will get funded at all or not. It's a question of whether you'll get funded at MA or not. So if you are too early, chances are that we will say, listen, go and build some traction and come back. Which, however, if you have to go back to, say, an incubator or an accelerator, they might just say, listen, it's a paper business plan and we will do it. Some of the things that we have seen now, like I keep saying, it's an art and not completely a science, but some things that we have seen don't work for us is if there is a founder running parallel businesses. So if there is, if you're running you're trying to build 3-4 startups and you're coming to us and saying, listen, will you fund one of them? If you are not fully committed to your business, why do you want the investor to be? Yeah. If you're doing a job and you've not yet fully stepped off from the job and saying, listen, I have started the startup, I'm going to quit only once the money comes in. It's not happening, If you are like I mentioned earlier, if you're a consumer product, if you're a B2B, anything which requires sales, you have to convince customers before you convince the investor. So I think a lot of it comes on saying, not understanding the investor mindset, B, being too early, and C, not even having all the basic blocks of your startup in place. You're so focused on saying, I've got this fabulous idea. But have you built the company in a way that it looks like a 10x? Okay. Now the other thing, the other one that comes from here is you need to be able to take a call on saying, are you running a lifestyle business or are you building a startup? It's a huge difference. So what happens is that when I am somebody who is coming to, say, a network like Mumbai Angels, and you're looking at, say, investors to put money, investors are looking to put money in your startup if they see a couple of multiple time growth in their investment. So I'm not going to put a number. So, earlier there used to be this 10x number. I don't know. I don't think the good thing is all angel investors are not looking at 10x. You could find people who are willing to look at companies that are 4x, 5x, but it has to be a minimum 4 to 5x of where, valuation returns once somebody puts money into it. Nobody is going to come and put money into it if they are going to see returns which are, like, for example, a grocery shop, for example, or a legal firm will not get funded. an app that actually enables customers to be able to shop from home is going to get funded. Or an app that actually digitizes a part of the legal process. So in fact, we have a company in our portfolio that does exactly that. Those will get funded. So the difference between what is a startup versus what is, an SME or something which is a consulting or a lifestyle business is also another thing that, make sure what gets funded and what doesn't get funded. Recently, we also see a lot of interest in, stuff that's getting funded is, the new ones are space tech, defense tech, health tech, medical, consumer. The India consumer story is huge. So I know that right now COVID times are not exactly a thing, but we don't see that becoming a hindrance, because investors are saying, listen, if there is something that's going to tackle the urban middle class, we are interested. What doesn't, in terms of business plans, what sometimes doesn't get invested is if you are a Me Too product that has already got a very large player in the market. We will say, listen, this might not work for us completely. Okay. Shivangi, what?
So when we're discussing what works and what doesn't work in terms of the investment, the kind of companies which would potentially get funded, one other point to consider would be what is the time frame that an investor would look at for their investment to probably bear fruit, what are the time frames, what are the risks associated with this asset class. This could be another point which would be of interest.
Yeah, super. So that's a good one. So as an angel investor, you're almost always the first external money that comes into the business. So what that happens is that, the founder has perhaps put in anywhere between 10 to 30 lakhs in the business, which is either their own money or friends and family has come in. So the first level that comes in is from an angel investor. Now, this could be either an individual angel investor or a network like ours. Most angel money that comes in will last for anywhere between 12 to 18 months to 24 months. So that's the kind of money that is raised. Now, what does that mean? That means that the company that raises the money and comes, say, assuming it comes to a Mumbai angel, they say, listen, I need this money, it will last. This money will help us run through the next, say, 12 to 18 months. The inbuilt question, the inbuilt assumption in that is that there will be a next round of fundraise anywhere after that, or even before that. So the next round of fundraise that a founder will do after they've raised a money through a platform like ours is anywhere between 12 to 24 months. Now that is the assumption that we start working with when we invest. There are companies where investments have happened before. There are companies which have not been able to raise their money even after, say, 3 to 5 years. So today, like for example, our portfolio is about 140 companies. Of that, I would think about, say, 35 to 40 companies have raised the next round of funding. So that's the kind of ratio that you're looking at. However, for the investor, the next round of funding doesn't mean an exit. That's a very critical thing that anybody who's looking at this asset class new should understand. You will need to have the patience for a minimum 3 years, for you to be able to see an exit or a return on your money. Anybody who is walking into this asset class saying, I will get my money back in 12 months or 18 months, has not done their research well. And I would be very, very cautious in, looking at this in startup investing from there. You will have to have a patience of 3 to 5 years. That's number one. Second, this should be money that you are okay to lose. This is very risky. So you need to understand that, if you did the spectrum of, investing asset classes, and the riskiest part that is there, startup investing goes and sits right there, because what you are doing. So, like I keep saying, startups are not some new, actually it's wrong to call them an asset class. Any company that is listed today, whether in India, anywhere across the globe, started out as a startup. The question that you have to answer in your head is that from the journey of an ideation to where something becomes a listed company entity, where are you putting the money in? And you're putting the money here, right here, as an angel investor. So it is not a new it's not a new entity. It's just the same entity. So uh, today, for example, and I think one of the best things that you can see is Geo. You've seen how people have started investing in Geo, right? Of course, it is a different scale, but Geo is also a startup. It's a function of somebody starting out a whole new concept and whole new product and said, I'm going to build this from scratch. That's the one thing that each one of us needs to understand. Yeah. Sure.
So, Nandini, when we're talking about the risks associated with investing in the startup space or the asset class, as we call it, do you think that this will be significantly impacted by the COVID era that we are living in, or it would multiply, or it would not be any different from what it is
Look,
in the regular?
the challenge with crystal ball gazing is that it in these times the models don't work anymore. What I can talk to you about is what we have seen over the past 3 months and what we are seeing from here on. So for the past 3 months, we have not seen a slowdown. Okay. Now, when I see we have not seen a slowdown, I want to put a caveat there also. I think individual investors have not stopped investing. Individual investors who are actively looking to put their money in different startups or different companies are still going out there and putting the money. What has slowed down and what has dried up a little is the investment by funds. So the same asset class, same set of founders earlier could say, listen, I want to go to an individual investor or I can go to a fund. The fund conversations have started going longer because a lot of funds have actually started saying, listen, let me conserve cash, let me put my money back into my portfolio, my earlier portfolio, so that we last this whole thing. Individual investors are not doing that. Individual investors are still very keen to look at it. I think this is going to be the trend from here on, because there will always be individual investors looking to invest in newer companies. If, however, this tends to start dragging more. So, for example, if you see that, this uncertainty is, dragging on for a year, though I don't see it now, there are these spurts that are happening. An economy like India cannot be shut, and we are seeing it, right? We're now at a place where we said, let everybody just sit down at home because, COVID is the biggest challenge. Now we are saying, let's learn to live with COVID. We don't, the thing over there is that you don't know what will come out of this statement of saying let's live with COVID. But I don't see startup investing going down, and I don't see the returns going down, primarily because we as a country are too huge and too large for us to stop either creating value or creating products, or consumers to stop consuming.
So when we are on the topic of investments, are we seeing any trends in the kind of sectors that our investors are looking at, considering? Is there some kind of preference that's emerging? Are there types of investors who invest in certain kind of sectors? And what are the typical characteristics, if we are able to put a peg to that these are the characteristics of an investor who invests in healthcare or say in IT?
Yeah, so I think there are two questions over there. One is a question on saying, what are the kind of sectors where we are seeing investing? And the second is, is there a typical, is a characteristic of a certain investor investing in certain things? So, see, whenever startup investing is happening, I will first divide it out, and this has got nothing to do with COVID. It's just how you look at it. There will be investors who are wanting to focus on tech-based investment, and this is not just product; it is anything that is tech-enabled. So, if, like I said, within those also, any sector that has the potential for a multiplier effect the minute tech is deployed for a country like ours. Yeah. So, for example, like I mentioned, we are seeing a lot of interest in life sciences. So, in fact, we as a network have actually started focusing on life sciences as a separate vertical itself, because we see so much interest there. And when we say life sciences, it's not just products; it's technology enablement. It's actually research. It's trying to find, so the entire value chain of life sciences is something that we see a lot of interest in. We are seeing a lot of interest in newer sectors like EV. So EV is another one where you think we've also closed deals in defense. We've closed deals in space tech. Uh, we also see a lot of interest in you know what you would call the India consumer story. So though today the difference between what the India consumer story was sometime back versus now is, for the India consumer story, the COVID question comes on saying, does the consumer have enough money? Is this a need or is it a luxury? But primarily, there will be always investments in the consumer space. So these are some of the spaces that a lot of investments are happening. We also see a lot of startups coming in these segments. To your question on who invests, see, the investment profile of the Indian angel investor is slightly different from, say, what it would be in, say, the US or Europe or more, developed markets. Here, what happens is that the angel investor typically is a younger investor. That's the one thing that we see. So and this younger investor is either somebody who is running his own business. So he's running his or her own business and is now saying, listen, is there a way for me to be able to invest in companies that either with two requirements. One is, can I actually use my own business to be able to propel this startup to do something different because I understand the space? And the second, of course, is an investment thing on saying, can I actually diversify my risk in startups? So I'm building my business on my own, and then can I diversify in other businesses? So that is one kind of a person. The second person is somebody who's already built a startup, has sold it, and is now saying, listen, I want to now invest in a couple of startups before I do my next startup. So this is the entrepreneur who comes back and says, let me not just build on my own, but also put money in. The third is the CXO. So there are, if you look at large companies, if you look at mid-sized companies, the CXO level, the CEO, the CTO, the COO, the CMO, they have started saying, listen, apart from whatever I'm doing in my day role, can I actually start participating in the startup ecosystem? So that is another guy who comes in as an investor. Then you also have people, that's the other big that we see. We see second, third generation entrepreneurs. And that's a very big component in the Indian ecosystem. What happens is that a lot of times, if you are a second, third generation entrepreneur, where the traditional business, family business is not of interest to you, the family has actually said, listen, why don't you manage the family money? Why don't you look at this corpus and figure out if there is a way for you to diversify our business? So that is the other guy who comes in. Depending on which lens you are looking at and who you are, the kind of companies that you will choose to invest in will change. It's going to be a function of your age profile, your comfort with technology, your understanding of what is going on, and based on that, people come in and invest.
So continuing this discussion, Nandini, how do you think we compare versus the other developed countries in terms of the entire startup culture and how developed the ecosystem is? And what is the distance you think we need to travel before we can say that there is a well-developed ecosystem in place in our country? And what are the steps that we as a network are taking?
Fabulous question. I think we have not even started, So, sometimes I'm asked on saying, who's your competitor in the market? And my answer is, there is no competition. I mean, we as a market. So, for example, if you look at, say, a an economy like the US, okay, 300 million people. Of that, there will be at least a couple of 100,000 angel investors who are going out there and who are doing these investments, and they're active, and some of them are super angels, and they have their own name, they run their own portfolio, etc. We had done a study, along with other angel networks a couple of months back, couple of quarters back actually, where when all of us put all our numbers together, we were not more than 10,000 investors. Can you imagine a country like ours, which is 1/7 of the world's population, only 10,000 angel investors? If you actually had to multiply, that whole thing and said, if US is 300 million, and I'm just saying that it has, a couple of 100,000 investors, you are saying that in India, you need at least 1 million investors. That's the kind of journey that we need to travel for us to become a robust startup ecosystem, startup culture where, new ideas get funded, investors are continuously out there putting their money, backing the right founders, that whole so I think we are talking of us growing multiple folds before this becomes a thing. So I understand that, there are a lot of work being done, and I've been on government discussions, government panels, trying to understand how these things work. There's a lot of good work being done both at the center and networks like ours are working, but a lot more investment needs to go before we become a truly vibrant startup ecosystem.
So in fact, now it's almost time to take the live questions. We can take the first one from Abhishek Choksi. Akshay, can you unmute his microphone? Abhishek?
Hello. Hi.
Yes,
Hi.
we can hear you.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi. Good evening, everyone. So my question is, see, I have a startup called Happy Hours, wherein we allow people to choose among the restaurants where to go in for partying, and we allow them to. We also give them discounts, offers, and various other things. So, looking at the COVID scenario, how do you think that we should go in further, or what else?
This is a very specific question, so I'll not be able to answer in depth. I think that's a conversation we should take offline. But what I can tell you upfront is that don't just plan basis what you see right now. The situation is changing really rapidly. There are parts in the country where this has started opening up. You will see, I think there will be a rapid opening of the economy in some time. So don't just shut it because you think, COVID has hit. COVID has hit us only for 3 months. That's got nothing to do with, a startup's life. What you need to see are, can you pivot? Is there a requirement? So like, for example, when you're talking of discounts, etc., is there a way that you can actually talk to restaurants and say, listen, are you COVID ready? I'm going to start promoting you as a COVID ready restaurant. I'm going to give people discount if they come to you, and you tell them that, listen, here are 3 things that I do which are COVID ready. Can you actually help them digitize their menu card so it becomes contactless? I'm just saying, you'll have to think on product fit, which now both the customer and your restaurant are looking at, which maybe which didn't even exist in their decision set over the last 3-4 months. Having said that, what you need to know is that all ideas are good only till you have cash in your bank. Do you have enough cash to be able to last while you experiment and while you roll out your plan? So absolutely critical to figure out if those 2 things are there.
So Nandini, since we are discussing some of the impacted sectors, we looked at F&B, maybe we could discuss a little more on some of the others who are equally in a disadvantaged position right now, maybe say real estate, travel, which were booming and doing well in the last year or so. But in the last 3 months, these businesses have been severely impacted. So there are two aspects to it. One is that what should such founders do? And also, what is the kind of investment that these companies can look at? Should they look at raising capital right now, even if it is just to manage their working capital and runway?
Yeah, yeah. So, I was reading a very interesting article yesterday where, I think it was in Mint or something, where they actually gave on a 10-point scale, they gave like a score on saying which sectors are looking really impacted on this whole this thing. What you saw on the top 5, 6 of them are any places where people congregate. So anything where you had a lot of people and which depended on people congregating for this thing to work, chances are that you're going to take a long time to come back to this thing. So, they had these lists on saying bars. So I always think, why bars? Why are bars so high up on that whole thing? So apart from people congregation, that's the place where they're saying the minute you've had a couple of glasses of alcohol, you start thinking I'm invincible. So you will say, oh, what is social distancing? Take off the mask. So then suddenly that risk. So anything that requires people to congregate for the business model to work, there's a problem. Anything, sorry, any so you're talking of bars, you're talking of music, you're talking of live events, you're talking of wedding planners, anything that actually depended on people coming together, tour operators, flying, all those things. Also, the other bit that has got impacted a lot is luxury segment, because suddenly the consumer A has no money, and B, they don't know if this is going to impact their lifestyle in the long term. So luxury is a place that you have to look at. And secondly, anything that requires a lot of contact. I don't see too much happening in other sectors, which are A, necessity, and which B, will anyway happen irrespective of whether there is social distancing or not. So I don't see like, say for example, like for agriculture, we don't see happening. Retail is actually something that is doing well now, the minute you can shift to an online retail. Or like I mentioned, these any product that you're building, anything to do with life sciences. What do you do if you are in one of the sectors that have got impacted? You will have two questions. One is, do you have the money to be able to last this, till you figure out what changes do you need to make to do that? And secondly, is there a way for you to be able to pivot? Pivoting is a question that all impacted companies need to keep asking themselves before they figure out the way. Yeah.
So the next question that we have live is from Ankit Rathod. What he's asking is the potential of having single founder companies being funded. How is it perceived by angel investors? So if you could, Ankit, if you can ask your question.
Yeah, Ankit. I think is he muted?
I think he's unmuted. Ankit, can you hear us?
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. Is it fine?
Yeah.
Now can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I started, I have read some stories of some great startup which started with a single founder. The single founder started building the product, got some traction, then he got some another founder, and then the team built up. So it's not. So I had read some stories about companies that started with single founders, and then the team got built up later on. But in many sessions, we hear or we read online that it's only, as you said also, that great team is one of the foremost thing that is looked after for funding. So if there is a scenario for a business that a person starts a company, say, single foundedly, thinking the vision that okay, let me build to a certain stage, and once along the journey I will find other founders as well. So what are the chances of a single founder company getting funded? How the investors or the investment community sees those?
So look, the investor is looking for a team to be able to execute. So you have to understand that when an investor will come in and say, okay, here is the money and you go ahead and do it, they are not willing to let you experiment with their money. Business plan? Yes. Do you know how you will execute the business plan? If the answer is yes, so then they will ask, okay, who's going to execute it? Now, for everything you are going to say, listen, I am going to execute this, there is a challenge. Why do people say that in startups you need a co-founder upfront? Or the thing is because investors have seen how much effort and how much commitment it needs for a startup to go through the entire journey before it creates value. You know? And the understanding is that if you have 2 people, 3 people over there who are all of in it and together, chances of you being able to make it are better. If however, so by funded, they get funded. But what the founder has to convince the investor is that ability to build it with me. They are committed enough to build this with me, and I have the money to be able to pay them. So understand what is co-founder versus somebody who's on the rolls of your company. Somebody who's on the rolls of the company, you will have to keep them motivated, and you will have to pay salaries irrespective of how the company is doing. Did I answer the question, Ankit?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So if we look at the next questions, I think what we are asking again is a lot of sector specific questions. So I'll just name some of the sectors if there are some views that you would like to share on that. So the first is fintech, there's real estate in terms of investing in these companies.
Okay. So real estate, look, anything which is a very, very asset heavy model, right? So angel investing, and especially, you know, the level at which we do, or say when VCs come in, etc. You are talking of investing anywhere between, you know, like I said, 50 lakhs to $1 million, or say a couple of $1 million. If your business model is based on buying assets and then monetizing it, chances are that you will not be able to raise money. If, however, you are trying to put tech within real estate, so you are not the person who's actually selling that inventory, but you're trying to find a way to make people sell their inventory, finding a way for the buyer to make more, you know, critical decisions. Those are the things that get invested. So real estate, it's a very, very large segment. So you will have to, you know, break it down and say asset heavy or asset light. The other segment that, what was the other segment, Shivangi, that people were asking for?
So the other segment is fintech.
Fintech, yes. Now fintech is a big one, but I also think fintech is, it can't be just clubbed together. So, you know, what we do is that we continuously keep talking to large corporates and saying, okay, and so, you know, you will talk to a large bank, or you will talk to a large NBFC and say, look, if you wanted to invest in fintech startups, what segments are you willing to look at? And you will be surprised that these banks and these NBFCs actually sometimes come up with up to 15, 20 sub-segments of fintech. So you can't just club everything into fintech. What we have seen is that there are some sub-segments within it which have actually now got a couple of large startups already funded in. So those are the ones where if you're trying to build another app or another, you know, another product that actually goes and competes with, say, Paytm, you have a tough time because you already have a Paytm sitting there, right? If, however, you're trying to tackle something very specific down the line, or in some specific, say, for example, insurance, you're suddenly doing insurance tech, or you're suddenly doing bill payments tech, those kind of things, those are the places where you have a lot of interest. What I will say is that, you know, stuff like fintech or, you know, media tech, which are very, very sector specific, it always makes sense to go and try and pitch it to an investor or an investor group which understands the sector. Because these are some sectors which are not generic, you know, where every investor will be interested, because you need to actually understand the product and the product market fit before an investor walks into it.
I think the next question that ties into this is a bit of crystal ball gazing. If we had to identify the top three factors basis which a startup will either succeed or fail, what would you say they are?
Yeah. Okay. Actually, I think I can take a shot at it. I think the first one is hustling. This is the grit of the founder and the founding team to stand there and say, I'm going to make this goddamn thing work. I think that is the first thing that has to be like. So, I always say that whenever an investor and a founder are sitting across the table on valuation of a company, there will always be a gap. And that gap is actually good. You know why? What? Because you know what that gap signifies? That gap signifies the startup founder's conviction in his or her ability to build to the vision that they have in their mind. It's their conviction in their product and their ability to build. So the investor looks at it saying, okay, this is where it is. I have this data point. I have seen a similar company here and there. Do I want to invest in it? What the founder needs to do is come back and say, listen, you might have, but guess what? You didn't see someone like me to be able to deliver this. This grit and this hustle is actually one of the key things that makes a startup work or not work. The second is processes. I can't signify the importance of process. So what happens is that when you come in and you say, listen, I am here to raise money. So you raise money the first round, because at that time you're just trying to put things together. Once you've got the money, have you managed to change yourself from, let's not call it change, let's call it morph. Have you managed to morph yourself from a startup to a company? Do you have the processes in place for you to grow from a 10-member team to a 1,000-member team? Do you know how to hire the right people? Do you know how to retain those right people? Do you have the incentives in place? Because if you don't do these 2-3 things, you will collapse under your own weight. So like, there's this other thing which says, what is the difference between a funded company and a non-funded company for the CEO, the founder? It is on saying, are you doing the work of a CEO or are you being a CEO? Being the CEO is a journey that the startup founder needs to take to grow their startup from a small company to a large company. Any company which doesn't manage to make that transition, irrespective of where they are, chances are that they will fail. The third bit over there is a lot of continuous engagement with all stakeholders. Absolutely important. Are you a company that is in continuous conversation with your customers, with your investors, with your employees, with your ecosystem partners, and continuously bringing in whatever is the innovation that is happening in the ecosystem, what is the thought process, is everybody included? If you don't do these 3-4 things, irrespective of where you started, chances are you will start faltering.
And I think we'll take one last question, which is from the other side of the spectrum. What is the advice that you would give to an angel investor who's just starting out his investing career? What are the top 3 things that he needs to be mindful of and top 3 things that he needs to do?
Yeah, super. So actually, I think this is a 3-hour class. but if I just wanted to look at saying, what if you started out on this, and I started out the session with this thing. First thing is, you have to start looking at enough startups before you start investing. Don't fall in love with the first startup that you get, to invest in, and say, wow, this is so, this is what is called selection bias. And I have been an angel investor now, I think almost 10 years, and I can tell you today I'm much less certain when I look at a company to say, is this going to become a multi-bagger for me or not, than I was when I started out. When I started out, I was super confident that, oh, I understand this company. I know this will work, this will not work. Today, after having seen so many, after have gone through this journey, you will have to stop falling in love with the startups that you see. That's number one. See enough before you invest. Second is, you will have to apply what is called a portfolio approach, which means that you need to decide on saying, how much investment do I want to do in this asset class? Take that money out, keep it, right? Then you say that, okay, I now need to start investing in regularly in more companies at a regular interval. So for example, you need to do this, don't just invest in 3 companies and say, ye hi banenge, these are the ones that are going to give me my multi-bagger. No, you have to start investing in several companies in a year for you to be able to build what is called a portfolio basket. Yeah. The third is that don't invest disproportionately high amount of money in any one startup. So you need to decide, so the same business on saying, I will invest in companies over a period of time, more companies. I will also invest a similar amount. I'm not saying same, but similar amount in most of my companies, so that whenever one of them does well, it gives me a good overall portfolio return. Because I'm telling you right now, chances that the company that you think is going to give you your multi-bagger will not be. There will be some other guy that you invested in that will come back. So once I've said this, I think every new investor should actually start their journey by joining a network. And I keep saying this is never a plug for Mumbai Angels. Please go and join any other network that you want to, but please don't do this on your own. Go there, join a network, understand the process, learn, because it is a craft. Angel investing is a craft. Investing in startups is a craft. So for example, if somebody asks me saying, oh, what are you going to be doing when you're 90 years old? I'm not so sure what else I'll be doing, but I'll surely be investing in startups. So that's a lifelong craft that you want to keep honing and keep building. And that you can do in a network where you keep learning, keep expanding your horizon, and do this along with people who understand it. Yeah, Shivan.
Yeah, I think we've run out of time. So thank you, Nandini. Thank you for taking time out and sharing your insights. For anybody who wants to know a little more about angel investing, we are running a series of masterclasses which are designed for the investor community. The first one is on how to design an effective shareholder agreement, which is tomorrow at 5 p.m. So if anybody wants to sign in for that, do let us know. We'll ask the team to send you the details. In case there are any more questions from the audience, do drop us a mail with your questions. We'll see how to get it answered. And till the next AMA session, which we'll see who we can bring on board for this. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.